Kingsway is a fantasy role-playing game that was developed by Andrew Morrish and published by Adult Swim Games for release in 2017. At first glance, the game is clearly an homage to 90s era PC aesthetic. The game world and menus reside entirely within a fictional operating system that is extremely reminiscent of the Windows 95 look and feel. When I first saw footage of this game, it immediately grabbed my attention, and was the reason I originally gave it a shot. Just like any other RPG, you start by creating a character. The character creation tool is fairly straightforward, allowing for the player to spec highly in any skill they choose. You can also edit the appearance of the character, which is represented solely by a head that appears in the character menu throughout the game. My favorite part is hitting the randomize button until my adventurer becomes a crazy, hellish nightmare being that should not be permitted to walk the face of the earth. Ah, there we go. The gameplay is simple. You click on the attack button, wait for the meter to fill up, then click the attack button again. That's the basic loop. I actually enjoy the system quite a bit, despite its simplicity to the point of being almost not engaging towards the beginning. A simple combat system that hinges heavily on character stats and die rolls allows for the player to focus their attention on activating the various abilities that their class has access to, such as the rage attacks for the warrior class and spells for the mage class. The biggest downside to the combat that I have found is the relative difficulty between classes. For instance, the warrior class is by far the easiest class to play as, since you can just spec incredibly high in strength and keep clicking the attack button until everything is dead. The mage, on the other hand, has many different spells that all have their own attack buttons. Deciding what spells you want to cast when can be fun, but you also have to worry about mana, which can only be regained by drinking mana potions. This is not a concern for the classes that rely heavily on melee, such as the warrior or rogue. The design of the game offsets this problem by making it harder for the more melee-focused classes to regain health by requiring them to use health potions or abilities, the latter being harder to do because these classes usually have a smaller mana pool to draw from. However, if you're looking to play the game on a sort of self-imposed easy mode, the warrior class is definitely the way to go, due to their high starting strength and unlockable abilities that make attacks hit faster and harder. I've only beaten the game with the warrior class so far. Each class has their own set of abilities that they can unlock by leveling up, which is a great way to distinguish the classes from each other and increase the game's replay value. Since this is a roguelike, towns, dungeons, and the castle, which is the ultimate goal, are in different positions every playthrough, and I find it to be engaging every time. There is also a real sense of urgency in lighting the beacons and locating the king's castle, since there is a constant threat of a wave of darkness that slowly creeps in from the left side of the map from where the game begins. Enemies in the darkness are extremely tough, and in this way the player is punished for lingering about the map for too long to complete the main quest. I find the fact that this game was created almost entirely by one person to be mind-boggling. Sure, it is a simple looking game, but one person had to go through and create all of the art, gameplay, design, and UI, and code it all himself. It reminds me a bit of Chris Sawyer developing Roller Coaster Tycoon, although he did have a bit of help with the art. Props to Andrew Morrish, because Kingsway looks and feels great. I grew up using Windows 95 and 98, so the layout of the windows in the game is a bit nostalgic to me. I especially love the simulated processor sounds as windows and programs load. I would be remiss if I didn't discuss the game's soundtrack as well. In the game's internal OS, there is a music note icon at the top left of the screen. Clicking this opens a music player in which there are 19 songs. The songs were all made by Landon Podbielski, and I have to say I absolutely love them. Some of them can sound pretty ominous, while others perfectly capture the feeling of setting out for adventure. I do enjoy that the soundtrack does not play unless a user turns it on themselves through the music player. It makes the game feel more like it is housed within an operating system and is a great way to allow the player to feel like they are more actively engaged with the unique ways the game requests input. Things like closing your backpack using the X button, opening the world map by double-clicking on the desktop shortcut, and avoiding enemy attacks by locating the dodge button on specific windows all come together to immerse the player in this fantasy world framed in a familiar way. What I think makes this game unique is how I can lose hours to fighting monsters and exploring in what seems like the blink of an eye. For some reason, each time I boot up Kingsway, I get drawn into it, and I don't stop until I beat a run or a run beats me. The creator achieved something really magical with this game. It is the perfect intersection of traditional fantasy elements, roguelike gameplay, and a familiar yet unique interface. Needless to say, I am very excited for Andrew Morrish's next release.